doom in 50 years' time. And even though we dance, we are not good enough. Even though we sing, it's not good enough. So he had 4 points, gloom and doom. And I was just sharing with him in the car. You know, when I was at Harvard Law School, I also happened to have a lot of Jewish friends. So my landlord was Jewish, my supervisor was Jewish, the professor was everybody. So I'm very much, my classmates also, many of them. So many of them say, like, you know, David Richardson here, they say, look, too many of Jewish people are converting to Buddhism. So there's almost a very popular term called Jubu, right? Judaism.
That's right.
So I'm the first Buju attempt Buju. And I said, well, I'm willing, and I'll come and participate in all the Passover and, you know, all the, I've been to synagogue and done all that. But then I had also several friends, and the one thing they asked me, I was just sharing with them, is, do you Tibetans guys fight? And what do you mean fight? You know, it's not debate, argue, things like that. And I said, yes, we do. He said, that's very good. You know, we have a saying, if you have 3 Jewish people, we have 4 views. If you have 4 Jewish people, we have 5 organizations. You know? You have to fight. Then only you last for 3,000 years and you survive. Yeah. There's something to fight over. So I was just telling President also, even though you 4 gloom and doom things you said, you have to constantly say it. So that we have something to debate about, something to discuss about, something to disagree about. As long as we have that, then, you know, it keeps us going. Once complacency sets in and everything, okay, we are not bad, then, you know, so yesterday you were saying the turnout today is so huge, and I must take this opportunity to tell you how bad you all are. You don't come to the meeting, you don't come to 10th March. Joe shows up every year, how embarrassing Tibetan do. So he was ranting. But we must keep doing it, you know. And right after the election, on my inauguration day, I think just before the election, and whenever I give speech, at the end I always say, this year in Dharamsala, next year in Lhasa. You know what happened? I got heavily criticized by promising moon, which I cannot deliver. They literally thought I was promising next year in Lhasa, you know. And I had to explain, no, it's whole Jewish thing that if you keep the memory alive, if you keep the vision alive, aspiration alive, make it next year, make it more urgent, that keeps you going. So I stopped saying that, actually. People still yet to understand why, you know, we have to keep that alive,
No, people in elected positions have to be careful about what we say. Sometimes people take it out of, they don't understand exactly what we're saying. But that debate is good, and one of the things that I think is so important about Tibetan culture is the fact that Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan culture are one, and it influences Tibetan culture. It influences the manner in which the Tibetan cause is unfolded, and with the middle path, and with nonviolence, because I believe that if the Tibetans had taken a different route and chosen a violent reaction, that there would be no more Tibetan culture right now. It would have given the Chinese government an excuse to completely annihilate. And by living by example and living a culture based on and intertwined with Buddhist religion, you have kept the culture, and not only Tibetan culture, but Tibetan Buddhism is actually stronger and more widespread than ever. And unfortunately, you know, the Tibetan community has had to go through what you've had to go through, but in other ways, the greater world has benefited from the course you've taken. And so many teachings have been shared that may not have been shared, and so many living examples of people who inspire us and give us something to aspire to. His Holiness and other people here, Geshe Sopa and others. We've had the honor of being exposed to them, and so by living that example, you've done so much good for the world already, and I think done what's necessary to keep Tibetan culture living for generations and generations. It's a long-term strategy that I think has worked and demonstrated to the world that nonviolence and sticking to it is really the only sustainable path. And I think you deserve a lot of credit for that, because it's not easy. And especially when the people have been through what the Tibetan people have gone through and continue to be subjected to today, that you continue to react in a nonviolent manner. And I think looking at the different religions, when we talk about the Jewish religion, Christianity, Buddhism, other religions, I mean, one of the things we find and that we see from our exposure to Tibetan Buddhism is that all of the major religions have at the core the same teaching, and that's compassion, and that's to love others. And it's not always easy. It's certainly been a challenge, you know, I mean, when you look at what's been done over and over to the Tibetan people. But what you continue to do is to find common ground with people and to stay true to that true core of Tibetan Buddhism. And I think that's incredibly admirable, and there's a lot for us to learn from it. And it's one of the reasons I'm so drawn to the Tibetan community, and I feel so fortunate to have the friends that I do in the Tibetan community here, that they mean the world to me.
It's very, very kind of you. You know, a person like you and Richard and others, our friends, you know, we always say, and we always say, we really don't have much to offer. Maybe Geshe Sopa can offer you very good karma. We lay people really don't have much to offer, but you all being true friends, you know, and really, and they were telling me, you know, so whenever we have emergency, dial 911 Joe. Any kind of event, you want a VIP guest, they call you and you always show up. So it's really, really kind of, so we have, you know, because of His Holiness, friends around the world. Even though, you know, we don't have much to offer. Even though, you know, China is very powerful. But because of friends like you, I think our issue is alive, our issue have some resonance. I can come to your office, I could see a Tibetan flag and the fluttering.
It's beautiful today.
That's it's beautiful. We hope one day it will fly over the Potala Palace. You know. That is our dream. But then to see, not just Tibetans hoisting the flag, which I have to do on all the public events, but to see here, you know, counter office, the Tibetan flag, means a lot, especially to Tibet inside Tibet.
Yes. Well, you all have been such an inspiration. It has penetrated so many segments of Western culture now, the Tibetan influence. And His Holiness's mandate for secular ethics has been impacting education. We're now here in Madison implementing a kindness curriculum in the public schools that was inspired by His Holiness. And it has been a curriculum which has been so influential and has really meant a lot to the school system here. And this is now happening at many different places throughout the country.
Yeah, I think Richard brings the empirical evidence that Tibetan values has, you know, real meaning to it. Because otherwise, Buddhist scholars, they have been saying it for thousands of years, philosophically speaking. But now to have empirical evidence to prove that if you do analytical meditation, it actually does help you, not just physically, mentally, perhaps even your gene, you know. So that's very important. Yesterday, we were talking to youth, because now we call ourselves Tibetan American. But we should always remember the Tibetan part of it, you know. Of course, you're American citizen, you have to, it's part of melting pot, you have to adapt to the host community, but you should always remember Tibetan. The fact that you're here because of being Tibetan, the fact that people respect you because of being Tibetan. And when you say Tibetan, it has certain values like, you know, humility, integrity, resilience. These are the core values Tibetans have. His Holiness Dalai advises us, elder generation have carried on. So we have to carry on the legacy. So in that sense, actually, the younger generation have far more responsibilities moving forward. Be American, but be always Tibetan and remember your values and carry forward. If you get too Americanized, then I say we become normal. And once we become normal, we get normal support. Now we have to remain little abnormal or a little different so that we get more support, you know. Because perhaps people can say, hey, you are good, you can bring something to the world. And that, I think the younger generation need to know. So in that sense, the elder generation leadership, they had, in some sense, easy job in the sense they knew their values, they inculcated that, and they carried that in their day-to-day life. Now the younger generation need to be taught, need to be validated. So they will say, I trust but verify. So we bring Richardson and say, look, you know, it's verify. You can look at the Tibetan monk's brain.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think it's very important. So part of my job now is to meet all the Tibetans everywhere. This is my trip. Actually, I've covered all the Tibetan settlements, all the schools, all the old homes in India. I've covered all the Tibetans in Europe. A part of this trip from Halifax to Montreal, Ottawa, Vermont, Wisconsin, tonight Chicago, New Mexico. Then from New Mexico, I fly straight to India. Almost 22 hours of flight, you know. So I'm just covering all the Tibetans, so I would have covered all the Tibetans in North America as well. So it's one thing to say, you know, I'm the elected leader, but, you know, you have to connect with them. Come here and show up. And people also vary, the organizers, the executive, local executive take responsibilities very seriously. And people also show up in large number.
Yeah.
Yesterday, one of the largest number I was told.
That's great.
And then, you know, lock them up for 3 hours and drill them.
That's good. I mean, I'm sure it's an inspiration for the community to have you come and show that you care enough to be here in person. I mean, it's very important.
Sorry,
that's okay.
I
need to go to your next meeting.
Yes,
oh, I understand.
At the University of
Yeah, it was actually put together by the China Initiative, the Center for East Asian Studies, and the Center for South Asia.
Yes. Hopefully, I'll get to meet some Chinese. Actually, I did my LLB, like equivalent JD from Delhi University. I did my master's and doctorate SJD at Harvard Law School. And the 7 years that I spent there working, while I did that, I spent a lot of time talking to Chinese students and scholars from China. So I've interacted with them a lot. So organize a lot of meetings. So whenever I have Chinese in the audience, you know, I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's so important.
Having the debate.
Yeah.
Having the debate. Last time I was in University of Virginia, our as a professor.
Germano? David Germano? Jeffrey Hopkins?
Jeffrey Hopkins was there. That's 4 or 5 years ago. So there were a couple of Chinese in the audience. So they asked me, you know, some questions. They were looking at the Chinese embassy website and asking me questions. And I answered them calmly, quietly, and kind of essentially deconstruct the argument and then put forward my point of view. And afterwards, Jeffrey asked me, how did you do that, you know? When Chinese ask me those questions, I just want to go strangle them. You know? These questions are, we Chinese have benefited you Tibetans, we have civilized you, you know, we have lifted you from backwardness, and how come you're not grateful, you know? And then when you answer the calmly, so Jeffrey was saying, oh, you know, he was quite impressed, but he was also saying, my goodness, how did you do that? Then I was joking, I told, joking as Jeffrey, look, you teach compassion as I practice compassion.
Oh, that's so important. See, that's where that debate comes in again. Learning the Buddhist debate. That helps. No, that's quite.
So
it's impressive. It's impressive. It's impressive.
So actually, if there's some Chinese, I enjoy that debate. You know.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be some.
Yeah. Hopefully.
We've had our interactions with the Chinese too. I've had visitors from the Chinese consulate come and ask me to stop talking about Tibet. We had a few thousand Chinese citizens in red shirts during the what was it, the torch relay. So there's been some interesting interactions. But this is a great opportunity for them to learn and not be subjected to the lack of news that happens in China.
And so you're right. Our middle way actually is a win-win proposition for everybody, you know. So really, I mean, His Holiness believes that. We Tibetans say that. His Holiness believes, he says, enemy is my friend. He sincerely believes that. We Tibetans, we have a tough time digesting that, but we at least say that, you know. So we don't look at them as enemy per se, with not that kind of resentment. Nonetheless, middle way is a win-win proposition. They get everything that they're asking for, and what we're seeking is genuine autonomy for Tibetans. So I think Chinese people also, they really don't have to, they're so animated, with Tibetans actually.
There are a lot of Chinese graduate students here at the university, and I have a lot of opportunities to interact with them. Mm-hmm. And doing it around science is very helpful because it's kind of a neutral territory, and they can see the value of the meditation practices, and the science stands on its own. I think it really helps them better appreciate why we're so interested in Tibetan culture.
Yeah, I think the science actually is a really good way. I think even for Tibetans to show, because no matter what, Chinese wants to be America, the West, the Western scientists are saying Buddhism is good.